And May will become Prime Minister. Jeremy Corbyn will still be lead with the Labour Party, and Ed Balls will go on Strictly Come Dancing.
That's ridiculous. You're not a proper fortune teller.
Oh, and this bloke will be Foreign Secretary.
Now I know you're a fake.
Have I Got News for You? A new series starts Friday at 9 on BBC One.
Big news for Les and Pam means even bigger news for Billy. EastEnders tonight in half an hour on BBC One. First, though...
Now we've got a stellar lineup on the One Show as usual tonight.
Indeed we do, but before we meet the guests, we are breaking with tradition. Because we have a question, don't we, from a member of the audience.
Well, we do. Where should we go? Should we go this way? Let's go
No,
this
go
way.
this
Hello,
way.
what's your name? Where are you from?
Lauren from Potter's Bar.
Very good. And what's your question?
How do I go from being a guest in the audience to being on the sofa?
Funny you should say
I think
that.
we can help you out with that one.
Daniel, what's your question?
If you weren't comedians, what would you do?
Now then.
I'd love to be a professional footballer. I'd love to be a professional footballer.
Everyone seems to make a really big deal about discos. The people here and the parents. What's the big deal? It's an old dance. People go to an old dance and they come home
Big
again.
deal. The big deal. What's the big deal? Please welcome Daniel Radcliffe and Graham Norton.
Welcome both.
Thank you very much.
Tremendous.
So, what was the big deal?
Can I just say, time's been a lot kinder to him.
I've got a lot longer to go.
That is true.
Wow.
All right, I hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I get it. I'm really old.
You were on about discos.
Honestly, I don't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, it was.
It was a program called Young Line. And
Great name. We're making it. Yeah, we're making.
Yeah, I know. I remember nothing about it, but I remember it was exciting being on telly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look very excited to be on telly in front of the Chuckle Brothers.
Yeah,
I mean, how did you end up in that studio?
Well, my dad, I think, worked at the same agency as somebody else who worked at Live and Kicking, or somebody who represented like James Leeds and his own balls. So I was like, can I get on in somewhere? And then they got me on the show, and we all submitted questions, and if your question was good enough, you got to ask it on the show. And I also, incidentally, asked the same question 2 weeks later to Andrew Lloyd Webber. Because you don't have to, I'm sure you know this, when you're interviewing Chuckle Brothers or Andrew Lloyd Webber, you don't have to change the question.
No, exactly.
Knock out the same one every night.
And who would have thought that innocent looking boy would end up playing a corpse with wind issues, which we'll get to a little bit later on.
We will
Swiss
indeed.
Army Man.
And Graham, you've got a book out, so
Yes.
plenty to talk. It's a serious book this time. Ish. Plenty to talk about. Now, imagine how you would feel if you found out that the people you thought were your mum and dad were actually different relatives and not your biological parents at all.
Well, in a new radio documentary, presenter Susie Mann has met some of those who are coming to terms with exactly that.
The official Asian music chart.
I'm Susie Mann from the BBC's Asian Network. Good afternoon and welcome to Chart Saturday right here on the BBC. 3 years ago, I adopted my brother's son when he became unable to look after him. I first found out about Raffio when he was 10 months old. Prior to this, I didn't know I had a nephew. It was my brother called me and said he was struggling and he needed somebody within the family to look after his son. And instinctively, I think way before meeting him, I'd already decided that this is something that I would like to do. I don't think he fully understands that I'm not his biological mum, although I have often said to him that I didn't give birth to you, so he of course questions, where was I born? And I say, in my heart, because to me that's really where he was born. We do talk about biological parents, so I'm hoping he does understand to an extent, still quite young.
Then I moved to live with my mummy.
And we have a life story book which we go through, which sort of simplifies everything for him. Some Asian families who do inter-family adoption choose to keep it a secret. So I'm interested to find out the impact this has on those children when the truth finally comes out. I'm off to meet Huma, who was adopted by her aunt and uncle and brought to the UK when she was 5 months old. Huma, take me back to the day when your biological mum told you that you were adopted.
I was 17. It was my surrogate mother's birthday. My biological mother had travelled from Kenya, and she broke the news to me moments before the celebrations began. I remember she specifically said, you know, don't tell anybody. It did have a sort of an effect on me, it had an effect on my well-being. It was literally churning inside, and, you know, I found myself vomiting, I found myself constantly being sick. And I was sort of taken aside once by my deputy teacher, just asking me, are you okay, Uma, because you're starting to look very pale and you're losing weight drastically. And I said, I'm fine. But I wasn't. I actually wasn't.
How would you like to have found out that you were adopted?
I'd rather not have ever have known. It would have just caused a lot less tension or heartache. There would be no expectation, and therefore there would be no resentment, and therefore there would be no questions.
I can't imagine one day finding out that the two people I call mum and dad are actually my auntie and uncle. I think that would probably collapse the world around me. But not everyone's experience is so negative. Surinder Arora is a successful businessman and hotel owner in the UK.
Well, I was born in India, and my natural parents gave me away within a few days of being born because I was born after 3 siblings. It was kind of a mistake. So my uncle and auntie adopted me, and it was only at the age of 13 when my natural parents saw that I was becoming a bit of a gangster that they decided to bring me over to England, and that's when they broke the news to me that they were my natural parents.
Did you deep down feel any anger, sadness?
No, I was obviously shocked. I'd come from a family where my parents would just let me get away with anything, and here I was. My mum would say, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this, you can't go out.
Did you rebel, or did you just accept it?
I kind of, in some ways, I used to hate my parents, I would hate my mum, I'm not allowed to do things. And if I hadn't listened, we'd probably still be living in a 2-bedroom council house. And because of going through that pain in the earlier days, look where it's got us to. I've been blessed, having love from 2 mums and 2 dads, and also my siblings, so why would I feel angry or upset?
The stories highlight the difficulties of interfamily adoption, especially if the truth is kept a secret from the child. But whilst I know the situation might be complex in the future, I am so happy and proud to have given a home to my son. I remember it was one morning, he was in the cot next to my bed. He said, "Mummy," and I remember just being lost in that moment, and it's the best feeling in the world, and I think to me it just affirmed that I'm mum and this is my son.
Done.
Oh, well, Susie is with us now. A beautiful film about Susie.
Thank
and
you.
You've got a documentary on the radio tomorrow morning exploring the topic a lot further. But a lot of secrecy is still involved in this, isn't it? So is it really hard to know how common it actually is then?
Indeed it is. I think to be able to quantify it would be very, very difficult. Though a lot of our case studies are historical. This kind of thing was quite common back in the 70s and 80s. But at the core of it, it's the secrecy. It's about everybody else in the family knowing that this child is adopted, but that child themselves. And then what happened, what the impact is when these people, as children, they were adopted, but now they're only just finding out as adults and in some very exceptional sort of circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, and talking of those circumstances as well then, I mean, was there a kind of a common thread that developed when you looked at those cases of why it happened?
The common theme amongst why they were adopted is the fact that brothers and sisters couldn't have children of their own. So it was almost like passing a baby but giving a gift as such to your siblings.
Yeah, which happens a lot surrogacy-wise, doesn't it? But lots of people react differently, as we saw in the film there. Some very positively, some very negatively, because obviously she found out Huber when she was 17 years old, which was quite late in the day. What are you hoping then to achieve with this documentary going out tomorrow? What do you hope people will take away?
We hope that it will resonate. I mean, the whole idea for Asian Network Investigates came about when one of our listeners of the Asian Network called up whilst we were discussing adoption and managed to pluck up the courage to tell the nation that he found out in his early 30s via email from his brother that he was adopted. And I think to this day he's still coming to terms with it. Yeah. So going back to your question, I really hope that it resonates, especially with biological parents and adoptive parents, and it helps children who perhaps have found out, adults who found out that they are adopted, to find some kind of closure, we really hope. And these conversations really need to be happening much earlier on.
Well,
important topic, definitely.
And you discuss it at length in this documentary that you can hear on the Asian Network, Passing the Babies, tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Once again, BBC Asian Network. Now, Daniel, we don't want to dwell on the past. However, our next film is about Harry Potter.
Sure.
OK? So if that's all right with you.
No worries, absolutely.
Can you just cast your mind back, OK, just to get an image in your mind of your good friend, Hermione?
Yes.
OK, and now we're going to show you this.
Wow.
Quite different, isn't it?
I mean, yes, but it's yeah, I mean, it's very good.
Yes.
But it's not her. It doesn't look like Emma Watson, though.
Well, no, but I mean, that's the thing. You know, I wouldn't expect any new illustrations of Harry to look like me necessarily either. You know, the films are fantastic companion pieces to the books, but the books, you know, obviously stand alone, and so everyone can bring their own imagination to it.
Good.
Well, Angelica has been to meet the artist responsible for this dramatically different vision of the world that Daniel here knows so very well.
This is the story of an ordinary man named Jim with an extraordinary talent for illustration. And how one day a single phone call turned his life upside down.
Jim Kay has been asked to reimagine a magical world, but not just any world. It's the world of Harry Potter.
Thanks to the films, we're all familiar with the look of J.K. Rowling's most famous creation. But for the past 2 years, Jim has been reinventing the world of Harry Potter from scratch for a brand new illustrated series of books.
I hadn't done many children's books, and the ones that I had done were quite dark. So I did a book called The Monster Calls, which was very dark, mostly black and white, and I hadn't really drawn children before. So yeah, it was huge pressure. The first 6 months I didn't sleep well at all, but I was just thinking too much about what other people would think. And the thing that children have is that when they draw fantasy, they just do it instinctively. When you're an adult, you second guess it. So there's a big sign above my door that says, "It's fantasy, stupid." So when I was drawing Hogwarts, you know, it's not supposed to look like it stands up. It's supposed to be held up by magic. So you have to try and remember what it was like as a child to just let your imagination run free.
And to help Jim visualise the inhabitants of this magical world, he bases the book's characters on real people, including its star, Harry Potter.
My character for Harry, I spotted on the train, and he just had something that you thought, I'd love to draw that. Just striking looking, big eyes, unusual.
And so 11-year-old Clay Caldwell became Jim's Harry. I'm reuniting them along with Clay's mum Alison and adding a touch of magic.
Lots of cake. You don't have to eat it all, don't worry. How does it feel knowing that you are the boy who's inspired how Harry Potter will look? It's quite a big deal, isn't it?
Well, yeah, when I found out, I went a bit crazy, and eventually, when I was allowed to tell my friends, none of them believed me, even when I showed pictures of it, so they thought it was a bit bizarre, really.
It must have been quite surreal to have Jim come up to you.
Very surreal. Somebody that you don't know begins to talk to you very quickly.
But then I knew I had 2 stops to sort of try and chat to his mum and say, I'm an illustrator. I couldn't say what it was, it's all secret.
Yeah.
And, you know, would you be able to help me out on this project?
So how did the relationship develop for you to get what you needed for your illustrations?
We meet, don't we? Is it about once, twice a year?
Yeah, around that.
Yeah, and then I asked Clay if he'll model for me. That's his mum being a dementor strangling Clay there. So I get him
So this is acting, Alison?
Yeah.
Clay and his mum have never been to Jim's studio, so the One Show has arranged for a very special and exclusive preview of the next book in the series, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
No one's seen this yet, so you'll be the first person to see it.
There you are. The detail is just
incredible. Yeah, I know.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's Dobby. Dobby's eyes there, and that's Dobby on the wall there.
Oh. I remember that one. I was on the chair, wasn't I?
Yeah, chair for a broomstick.
And how are you feeling? Does it make you feel really proud?
Immensely proud. They're just stunning pictures. Stunning. It's something that we'll keep and treasure.
It can't be easy trying to reimagine a subject that has been so embedded in the public mind. But in his own unique style, Jim Kay has managed to create the world of Harry Potter in a way that is both fitting and incredibly distinctive. So for Potter fans like me, it means there's a whole new world to explore. Now, let me get this right. Evanesco.
And the world of Harry Potter just goes on and on.
It does
and on.
indeed.
Lots of different versions. Now, Graham, let's talk about this new book, this novel that you've
A
written.
novel?
Yes. Well, I mean, well, why not? Why not? Why not? And we were talking about adoption earlier on. And
I feel like that applause is justified. I wish you'd been in my office when I was typing the end.
Was it a real task for you then, or was it
Honestly,
a joy?
I loved doing it. I didn't know whether I would. You know, I've always said I wanted to write a novel, and I got to an age where I just thought, well, I bet, you know, I need to stop talking about this. I need to do it.
Just do it.
And I did worry, have I given myself the longest, hardest homework in the world? But in fact, I loved it. I loved spending time in the location set in Ireland. I loved spending time with the characters. And also, it was that because it's not collaborative.
No, no.
There's no talking to people about what we're going to do. No. I'll tell you what's happening. I'll tell you. And I liked that. I mean, I don't think I'd like it all the time,
No.
but as a break from my other jobs, it was lovely.
It was a surprise, though, because when you start reading it, you go, now, this is very different to the He-Devil. Very, very different.
Yes.
And the plot is something that I wouldn't imagine, or lots of people wouldn't imagine Graham Norton particularly writing about. Were you surprised at the plot? And give us a flavour of what the story is.
I will. Honestly, I thought, when I would talk about writing a novel, I always thought it would be something sort of urban, urbane, you know, quite cynical and funny and all that. And in fact, what I've written is a sort of bittersweet romance with a kind of a tone of melancholy through it.
Quite traditional.
But, you know, it's a very traditional novel, and but there are some laughs along the way, and ultimately, I think it's quite optimistic.
Yes.
But there is a kind of a layer of sadness that runs all the way through.
Where do you think that came from, then, that story?
Well, basically, you know, they say write about what you know, but equally, I didn't want to be in this book. So I didn't want, you know, so there are no gay characters, it's not set in London, it's not about the media. And my life is so peculiar that by the time I got back to something that people could relate to, that I knew, I was back in Ireland in the late 70s. That was the last time that I had a life like that. And so that's why I ended up setting it there. And Ireland, particularly rural Ireland, you know, every 100 yards you pass a house and there's an extraordinary story associated with that family or the people who live there. And Irish people love telling those stories. So we all know hundreds of, and they're not about people we know. They're kind of like, oh, my brother-in-law's friend was neighbours with this man who this happened to. But you store them away and you collect them. So lots of the things that happen in this book are kind of versions of stories I knew growing up.
Okay.
And without giving it away at all, but the end is left open-ish so that you could do a sequel with the main character. Did you enjoy the process enough to do a sequel?
I enjoyed the process enough to write another book.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, that was just the end of the book. And it was only afterwards when people started reading it, they kind of went, ooh, so is there going to be another thing? And I was like, well, that hadn't struck me. So I don't know. But if the people demand it, I shall step up to the laptop.
And you haven't done one, your first one. What would you do next time to make it easier for yourself, or differently? Or what level would you go in at?
Honestly, I just love doing it. So what I would do, I'd probably try and take more time off.
Right.
Rather than trying to squeezing it in. But of course, we were just talking, you know, when you're busy, you get stuff done.
You do.
And if I thought I'd write this book at my holiday home in Ireland and stuff, no, I was just drunk leaning against a wall there. Where I got it written was in London, where, you know, I'm working, so I'd have a day off, and I think, oh, right, today's a book day, great. And I would look forward to doing it. I love spending time in the book.
And unlike an autobiography, you're competing with the big boys. I mean, you're like an author doing it, and you've had some good reviews, so we look forward to the next one.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very kind of gentle crime story, but I hope people will enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's out on Thursday, isn't it?
Yes,
it's
it
called
is.
Holding.
Yeah.
There we go. And of course, you can see Graham Norton, the Graham Norton Show. We'll give you a plug while you're here. Friday night, BBC One.
Yeah. On my player, you can see the two of us together.
Who are your guests this week, then, just quickly?
Now you're asking. Do you remember? I did say at the end of the show.
Check the radio
Danny DeVito's on. Danny DeVito's on.
Oh, he's lovely.
And John Bishop, Miranda Hart. Ewan McGregor. And there's somebody else. Sam Neill.
Oh, yeah.
We had
and Amber Riley singing. Amber Riley singing. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Right, it's time to get serious, OK? Because if you believe the weather forecasters, this week could be your last chance before winter to get out and paint your garden fence.
Yeah. See, everybody always laughs at things like that, but for me, that's kind of top of my weekend job list. I've got a fence. Seriously, I've got a shed to do, and I've got a climbing frame. Thankfully.
And inside it's a Matt's world.
Serious, honestly, it's Dom is on hand with some time-saving tips. Thank goodness.
Ropey old fence panels. But these fence sprayers are meant to make it a much easier job. To find out if they're any better than a humble paintbrush, I've come to the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh to meet shed and fence expert Neil Baxter.
Fences and sheds are made of larch. You need to preserve it to keep it looking good.
OK, so give me your opinion about these fence sprayers.
The joy of these sprayers is you get out, you get the job done, and you can sit down with a gin and tonic.
I feel a one-show test coming on. We'll be running the rule over paint sprayers from market leaders Cuprinol and Ronseal against two own brands from DIY specialists Wix and B&Q. That's a good start. I'm not getting my mitts dirty. Oh no, I've enlisted the help of some local professionals. Yes, a team of fake tan spraying beauticians from Edinburgh College. You're obviously used to giving punters a bronze once over.
Yes.
What about these fence panels? How do you feel?
Oh, they won't answer back, so it's fine.
Now, before the team get to work, they'll need to figure out how to use their new tools, which Irina seems to be struggling with.
It's a disaster.
She's got the cheapest sprayer from B&Q's dial range. Indeed. Jenna's putting her back into priming this budget blaster from Wix. That's looking good, you know, you've got pressure in there. Megan's ready to go with the second most expensive sprayer from Cuprinol. Well done, you seem to be the leader of the pack at the moment. While Emma's getting more paint on the floor than in our most expensive gadget, the Precision Finish from Ronseal. And she's not even started spraying the fence yet. And Natalie's taking it all in her stride, as she'll be keeping it simple with the paintbrush.
I don't know what the big deal is.
It's taken them 40 minutes just to load up with paint. Fake tanners, are you ready?
Yeah!
Born ready.
Go! And they're off. Is this how you do your tanning?
No.
All four sprayers need pressure to get the paint from the pot to the fence, and Jenna's struggling with the settings. What is going on here?
I don't know.
You're obviously on the wrong setting there, look, because that's dribbling out. But not everyone's having paint problems. I'll tell you what, you're steaming ahead, aren't you?
Aye.
But what about Natalie and her paintbrush?
Least amount of preparation and probably the hardest amount of work.
Get stuck in. Just 5 minutes gone, and Emma with the Ronseal sprayer is finished.
It was actually really easy to use.
Megan's a close second with the Cuprinol blaster.
Once you kind of just put the parts together and get going, it's fine.
But it's tougher going for Jenna and the Wix One Coat sprayer. It looks like melted chocolate, doesn't it, look?
Yeah.
I mean, it's put a thick coating on. And Irina finishes fourth with B&Q's own brand. What are you woo-hooing for? Look at the state of that. Looks like you plastered it, not painted it. And as we approach the half-hour mark, lagging behind is Natalie with a paintbrush. But with one final stroke, she's done, and our 5 fence panels are covered. But take a look at these clogged nozzles. They've been bunged up by the wax in the paint. I know from experience with those sprayers, when you're finished with them, you've got to clean out the pipes, the nozzles, the tubes, basically the whole shebang. And that's another 20 minutes worth of work. In today's challenge, the quickest sprayer with the least splatter was the Ronseal Precision Finish, our most expensive gadget. But good luck cleaning that up.
So with your shed and climbing frame in mind,
Yeah.
are you going to do paintbrush, or are you convinced now by a spray?
100% brush.
I knew you were going to say that.
100% brush.
Such
I'm old
a
school.
traditionalist.
I'm old school. And as a man who likes tools, I'm delighted to say that your new film is called Swiss Army Man.
Yes, that has got to be the best segue I've had on the entire
Very good.
Absolutely perfect. So now you're going to have to sell this to us basically because it's quite a role. This I'm intrigued just to find out how they actually got you to do the movie.
Everyone thinks I needed to be convinced. I really didn't. Like it's such an it was an amazing script. Yes, it was a very weird script, but I've read lots of weird, terrible scripts, and this was a great weird script. I basically play a magical dead body who starts after about 3 or 4 minutes of the film starts coming back to life, and he's discovered by Paul Dano's character, who's sort of a sort of hopeless lost soul wandering on a beach, and he finds my character, and they go on a magical journey together. They have quite an adventure.
I mean, it sounds weird, but it's actually a very beautiful story about two human beings, or one that's not quite human, a bit dead.
Yes.
Anyway, have a look.
That's a small detail, but yeah, no, I mean it is. Yeah.
Oh, there we are.
You're special.
I'm special.
Yeah, and that's why I need you to help me get home. Back in civilization, there's 7 billion other living people on the planet just running around and blinking and breathing and eating, and you used to be one of them. You were probably just looking for happiness. That's what everyone does. This is what you look like when you're happy. You look for someone who will make you happy. A friend, a girlfriend, or a dog.
Good boy.
Good boy.
Sometimes you might be lucky enough to bump into the one person you want to spend the rest of your life with, and that is love.
It's a movie that you take a lot away from it because obviously he's teaching you about life and what's important. Then as a viewer, then you sit there and you take it on.
And it's it's a movie that's really about joy. Like there are these two slightly odd characters, but he's reminding this dead body of why life is worth living. So in the process, he's exploring all the things that give us joy and make us happy.
And it's a brilliant performance from both yourself and Paul Dano.
Yeah,
but
Paul's
to give him credit,
he does
literally hump you around for the entire film, doesn't he?
He does.
Did he get stacked?
He did. He said he's never been stronger than when he finished this film. I'm not a particularly heavy person, but I am, the weight of a human being, and he was lugging me around. That's actually a line he improvised halfway through the film, which makes me laugh. In fact, you can see me because it actually takes. I shouldn't probably say this, but there's a moment in the film where I'm not supposed to be moving yet, and you can see me slightly move my head to avoid the camera seeing me laugh, because at one point he was just like, I'm going to be all buff from carrying you around, and then it wasn't in the script, and it just took me by surprise, and I went.
But that's the thing with, corpsing, I suppose,
yes.
pardon the pun. Just sort of like, because a lot of things happen that are very amusing, and yet you have to just remain completely... You can't even blink.
No, I can't. I got very good at not blinking, and also there's a sort of fear of, because Paul is giving this amazing performance opposite me, and I'm just lying there. There is a sense of if I even move a tiny bit, I've just ruined his whole scene.
Yeah.
So that sort of fear kept you very still.
But in all seriousness, you do say that this film is the one that you're most proud of, particularly one scene in it where you're on the bus.
Yeah, there's one scene which I don't know. It's so hard to explain, as the whole film is. I'm sure you're getting that sense. But, this scene, if I had to, let go of every other scene I've ever been in, I think this scene is just the most beautiful scene I've ever been a part of. It's about 5 minutes long. This is me, and he's teaching me about music, and Manny's singing, and he's teaching me about excitement, and then... Because Paul's character is sort of teaching him about life back home, and it's an extraordinary moment. And we all get to sing on the soundtrack as well, which was fun. We all
Did you?
Yeah, that's me and Paul. Me and Paul provide a lot of the soundtrack, but not all of it. There's
the soundtrack's amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it is. I didn't realise it was you, though.
Yeah, well, it's us and also Andy Hull from the band Manchester Orchestra, who he does the proper singing bits. The bits where you're like, that was really high and impressive, was not me.
Okay. I shouldn't have admitted to that. Brilliant. Well, that's it for for tonight. Thanks so much to our guests, to Daniel Radcliffe and to Graham Norton. Daniel's film Swiss Army Man is in cinemas right now, and Graham's novel Holding is out Thursday.
Now, on tomorrow's show, straight from the Starship Enterprise, we're going to be joined by Star Trek's Mr. Sulu himself, George Tae-hee. We'll see you then. Good night.